The camera pans across a crowded ballroom as two people lock eyes across the room. Their secret is about to unravel, asterisk. Hey everyone. If you're enjoying this story of love, deception, and finding truth in unexpected places, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content that touches your heart. Now, let's dive into a tale that might just change how you see the relationships in your own life. The chandelier light caught in her hair like stars trapped in midnight as she leaned close, her whisper urgent against my ear, "Everyone is watching. Kiss me, or they'll see we're just pretending." I froze, my champagne glass halfway to my lips, the bubbles fizzing unnoticed while my heart hammered against my ribs. Eliza Bennett, the woman I'd agreed to fake date for 6 weeks to secure her family inheritance, was looking at me with those impossible green eyes, a silent plea behind them that I couldn't ignore. The Vandermeer annual charity gala swirled around us in a blur of designer gowns and tuxedos, the elite of Boston society watching our every move. Somewhere in that crowd was Eliza's grandmother, Eleanor Vandermeer, the family matriarch whose outdated will stipulated that Eliza must be settled in a committed relationship by her 30th birthday to receive her portion of the family fortune, money Eliza needed not for herself, but to save the struggling community arts center she'd built from nothing. I was just supposed to be the stand-in boyfriend. A convenient fiction. A means to an end. But as I set down my glass and cupped her face in my hands, I realized with startling clarity that somewhere in the past 5 weeks, the lines had blurred beyond recognition. Her lips parted slightly in surprise at my touch, and I saw vulnerability flash across her face, the real Eliza peeking through the polished socialite facade she wore like armor. "They're all watching," she whispered again, her breath warm against my face. "I know," I replied, and kissed her. It was meant to be convincing but controlled. A performance for our audience. Instead, the moment our lips met, something electric and undeniable passed between us. Her hands gripped my lapels, and mine slid to the small of her back, drawing her closer. The room, the people, the entire charade fell away until there was only Eliza, real and warm and trembling slightly in my arms. When we finally broke apart, the flush on her cheeks wasn't acting. Neither was the confusion in her eyes. "Noah," she started, but whatever she meant to say was interrupted by the approach of Eleanor Vandermeer herself, elegant and imposing even at 82. "Well," the old woman said, her shrewd eyes moving between us. "It seems congratulations are in order." And just like that, our deception deepened, even as something honest and terrifying began to take root. I never meant to be a con man. That's what I told myself, anyway. 3 months earlier, I was just Noah Chen, 32-year-old architectural photographer with a decent reputation, a small studio apartment in Somerville, and a student loan balance that kept me up at night. I specialized in capturing the soul of buildings, finding the humanity in steel and glass and concrete. It paid the bills, mostly, and occasionally let me create something beautiful. The day I met Eliza, I was shooting the historic facade of the Vandermeer building downtown, one of those grand old Boston landmarks that whispered stories of old money and older secrets. I hadn't known she was a Vandermeer then. She was just a woman in a practical blazer with an impractical coffee stain down the front, cursing creatively as she dabbed at it with a napkin. "Need help?" I'd offered, holding out the packet of emergency wipes I kept in my camera bag. She'd looked up, startled, then laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to surprise even her. "Unless you can turn back time 20 minutes to before I collided with an intern carrying a venti latte, probably not. But thanks." I'd handed her the wipes anyway. Time travel's not in my skill set, unfortunately. But I do have these, and they've saved more than one shoot. "You're a photographer?" She'd glanced at my equipment with new interest. "Architectural mainly." "I'm Noah." "Eliza," she'd replied, not offering her last name. "And thank you for the wipes and the lack of time manipulation abilities. Both are oddly comforting." We'd parted ways after that brief exchange, and I'd thought nothing more of it until 2 weeks later when my phone rang with an unknown number. Is this Noah Chen? A woman's voice had asked. Speaking. This is Eliza. We met outside the Vandermeer building. I have a proposition for you. That proposition, outlined over coffee in a quiet corner of a cafe far from the financial district, had seemed simple enough. Pretend to be her boyfriend for 6 weeks. Attend some family functions. Make it convincing. Collect a generous payment that would put a significant dent in my student loans. Why me? I'd asked, suspicious and intrigued in equal measure. You're not connected to my family's social circle. You seem trustworthy. And you didn't recognize my last name, which means you're not after the Vandermeer money. She'd stirred her tea methodically. Plus, you have kind eyes. Kind eyes, I'd repeated, amused. Is that a requirement for fake boyfriends? It helps, she'd said with a small smile. Especially with my grandmother. She thinks she can read people. And can she? Eliza had looked up then, something unreadable crossing her face. Yes. That's what worries me. I should have recognized the warning in those words. Should have seen that nothing involving the Vandermeers could ever be simple. But the money was too good to pass up, and if I'm being honest, there was something about Eliza that made me want to know more. So I'd agreed, and we'd drawn up our rules. 1. 6 weeks, no more. 2. A convincing but appropriate display of affection in public. 3. Clear boundaries in private. 4. The truth stays between us. 5. When it's over, we walk away. Simple, clean, uncomplicated. We broke every single one. The morning after the gala, I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains and the distant sound of someone moving around in another room. For a moment, I was disoriented, then the memories of the previous night came flooding back. The kiss, the champagne that followed, the way Eliza had looked at me when we slipped away from the party, her whispered, "Come home with me," that had nothing to do with our arrangement. I sat up, running a hand through my hair, trying to gather my thoughts. This wasn't part of the plan. This complicated everything. The door opened, and Eliza appeared with 2 mugs of coffee, already dressed in jeans and a soft sweater, her hair pulled back in a casual ponytail, so different from the polished socialite of the night before. "Morning," she said, her voice carefully neutral as she handed me a mug. "I wasn't sure how you take it, so I brought cream and sugar." She set a small tray on the nightstand. "Black is fine," I said, taking the mug gratefully. "Thank you." She nodded and perched on the edge of a reading chair near the window, cradling her own coffee. The morning light caught the copper highlights in her dark hair, and I was struck again by how beautiful she was, not in the untouchable way of the gala Eliza, but in this quiet, unguarded moment. "So," she began after a silence that stretched just past comfortable. "So," I echoed, not helping at all. She took a deep breath. "Last night wasn't part of our agreement." "No, it wasn't. It complicates things." "Yes." She looked at me over the rim of her mug. "You're not making this easier, Noah." I couldn't help but smile. "What do you want me to say, Eliza? That I regret it?" "I don't." Something flickered across her face, relief, maybe, or fear. "Neither do I. And that's the problem." She set her coffee down and stood, pacing to the window. "My grandmother is throwing an engagement party for us next weekend." I nearly choked on my coffee. "I'm sorry, what?" She saw the kiss. Everyone saw the kiss. And apparently, the way we looked at each other convinced her that we're madly in love and secretly engaged. Eliza turned back to me, her expression a mix of frustration and something else I couldn't quite read. She announced it at the end of the gala, after we'd left. "And you didn't correct her?" "How could I? The whole point of this charade was to convince her I'm settled and committed before my birthday next month." She ran a hand through her hair, dislodging the neat ponytail. "If I tell her the truth now, I lose the inheritance, and the art center closes. I set my mug down and stood, crossing to her. Eliza, we can't pretend to be engaged. That's a whole different level. I know. She looked up at me, her green eyes troubled. But I don't see another way out. Not without losing everything. I wanted to touch her, to brush back the strand of hair that had fallen across her cheek, but I wasn't sure what the rules were anymore. What are you asking me? 2 more weeks, she said quietly. Just until my birthday. We attend the engagement party, make it through a few more family events, and then, we can stage a breakup after I've secured the inheritance. And last night? I asked, unable to keep the question in. What was that? She looked away. A complication. The word stung more than it should have. Right. Noah, she said, turning back to me, her hand reaching for mine before falling away. I'm not good at this. At being real with people. My whole life has been about appearances and expectations and playing the role of the perfect Vandermeer daughter. Last night was. She trailed off, searching for words. A mistake? I supplied, keeping my voice even. No, she said firmly. Not a mistake. But I don't know what it was, and I don't have the luxury of figuring it out right now. Not with everything else at stake. I understood then what she was asking, not just for me to continue our charade, but to put whatever had sparked between us on hold. To compartmentalize. To wait. 2 more weeks, I agreed finally. But Eliza, when this is over, we need to talk. Really talk. She nodded, relief washing over her face. Thank you. As I gathered my things to leave, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were both stepping deeper into a deception that would be harder to untangle than either of us realized. But I also couldn't deny that somewhere between our first meeting and that kiss, Eliza Vandermeer had become more than a client to me. Much more. The Vandermeer estate in Beacon Hill was exactly as imposing as one would expect, a historic brownstone with the kind of architectural details that would normally have me reaching for my camera. Today, however, I was too nervous to appreciate the craftsmanship as Eliza and I approached the front door, her hand tight in mine. Remember, she murmured, my cousin Marcus is suspicious. He's next in line for my portion if I don't meet the terms of the will, and he's been watching us like a hawk. The one with the bow tie and perpetual scowl? I asked, adjusting my tie. Eliza had insisted on buying me a new suit for the occasion, despite my protests. Hard to forget. That's him. Just stick close to me, Anne. The door swung open before she could finish, revealing a stern-faced older woman in a housekeeper's uniform. Miss Eliza, she said, her expression softening slightly. And Mr. Chen. Mrs. Vandermeer is expecting you in the drawing room. As we followed her through the house, I leaned close to Eliza. You have a drawing room? Of course you have a drawing room. She elbowed me lightly, but I caught the smile she tried to suppress. It had been like this for the past week, moments of genuine connection breaking through the awkwardness that had settled between us after that night. We'd been careful, maintaining our professional arrangement in public while trying to navigate the undercurrent of something more that neither of us was ready to name. The drawing room was filled with Vandermeers of various ages, all impeccably dressed and watching our entrance with undisguised interest. At the center of it all sat Eleanor Vandermeer, regal in a tailored suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, her silver hair swept into an elegant chignon. Ah, the happy couple, she announced, silencing the room. Come here, both of you. Eliza squeezed my hand once before leading me forward. I'd met Eleanor briefly at the gala, but this felt different, more like an inspection than an introduction. Grandmother, Eliza said, leaning down to kiss the older woman's cheek. You remember Noah? Of course, Eleanor said, her sharp eyes assessing me. The photographer with the unexpected manners. Sit, both of you. We have much to discuss. As we took our seats on an antique sofa that probably belonged in a museum, I noticed Marcus watching from across the room, his expression calculating. Beside him stood a woman I recognized as Eliza's sister, Catherine, who looked torn between suspicion and genuine happiness for her sister. Now, Eleanor continued, about the wedding. I've taken the liberty of reserving St. Bartholomew's for December. A winter wedding would be lovely, don't you think? Eliza choked slightly on the champagne she'd just been handed. December? Grandmother, that's only 2 months away. Precisely. No sense in a long engagement at your age, dear. Eleanor's tone made it clear this wasn't up for debate. The Vandermeer women have traditionally married at St. Bartholomew's for generations. I felt Eliza tense beside me and instinctively placed my hand over hers. Mrs. Vandermeer, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded, while we're honored by your enthusiasm, Eliza and I haven't had a chance to discuss our own preferences yet. The room went silent. Challenging Eleanor Vandermeer was apparently not something people did. The old woman's eyebrows rose fractionally. Is that so? Yes, I continued, feeling Eliza's startled gaze on me. We'd like some time to plan our future together. On our terms. For a long moment, Eleanor simply studied me, her expression unreadable. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. Well. It seems my granddaughter has found someone with a backbone after all. She turned to Eliza. Is this why you've chosen him? Because he's not afraid to speak his mind? Eliza's hand turned beneath mine, her fingers intertwining with my own. It's one of many reasons, she said, her voice stronger than I'd expected. Something passed between the two women, a silent communication I couldn't decipher. Finally, Eleanor nodded. Very well. You may have until spring. But I expect regular updates on your plans. She raised her voice to address the room. Now, let's celebrate properly. To Eliza and Noah. As glasses were raised around us, Eliza leaned close to whisper, What are you doing? We're not actually getting married. I know, I whispered back. But we needed more time, and now we have it. Until spring, she hissed. That's not exactly helpful. Trust me, I said, meeting her eyes. By spring, this will all be resolved. What I didn't say was how I hoped it would be resolved, not with a fake breakup as planned, but with something real. Something true. The realization startled me, but I couldn't deny it any longer. I was falling for Eliza Vandermeer, and our pretend relationship was beginning to feel more authentic than anything else in my life. The party continued around us, a blur of introductions and congratulations. I met cousins and aunts and family friends whose names I immediately forgot, all while keeping up the appearance of a man deeply in love. The irony was that with each passing hour, the act required less and less effort. It was near the end of the evening when Marcus cornered me at the bar, his bow tie slightly askew from too many whiskeys. So, he said, his voice low and unfriendly, you're the lucky man who captured our Eliza's heart. Rather convenient timing, wouldn't you say? I kept my expression neutral as I accepted a glass of water from the bartender. I'm not sure what you mean. Come now, Chen. A month before her 30th birthday, when she stands to lose millions if she's not settled? You must think we're all fools. He leaned closer, the smell. She was quiet for a long moment, considering. There would have to be a prenuptial agreement. Something that protects you as well as me. Of course, I agreed. This isn't about money for me, Eliza. It never has been. She set her coffee down and took my hands in hers. Are you sure about this? Really sure? Because once we start down this path. I'm sure, I said, surprising myself with how true it felt. Whatever happens between us personally, I believe in what you're doing with the Arts Center. That's worth fighting for. Her eyes filled with tears. No one has ever believed in me like that before. I brushed a tear from her cheek. Then they weren't really seeing you. When she kissed me this time, it felt like a promise, uncertain and hopeful and real. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of wedding preparations orchestrated largely by Eleanor and her team of planners. Eliza and I went through the motions, attending tastings and fittings while privately consulting with a lawyer about the prenuptial agreement that would protect both of us. The plan was simple: go through with the wedding, secure the inheritance, then take our time deciding what came next. If our feelings continued to grow, we would stay married and build a life together. If not, we would divorce amicably, with the art center's future secured. It should have been straightforward. But nothing involving the Vandermeers ever was. 3 weeks before the wedding date, moved up to January at Eleanor's insistence, I received a text from an unknown number: "I know what you're doing. Meet me at the Harbor Cafe at 2 p.m. if you don't want Eliza to get hurt." I stared at my phone, a cold feeling settling in my stomach. After a moment's hesitation, I forwarded the message to Eliza with a simple question: "What should I do?" Her response came quickly: "Go. I'll meet you there. Don't worry." The Harbor Cafe was a nondescript place in a touristy area of Boston, the kind of spot where no one paid much attention to other patrons. I arrived early, choosing a table with a clear view of both entrances. At precisely 2 p.m., Catherine Vandermeer walked in. I hadn't expected Eliza's sister. Of all the family members, she had seemed the most genuinely supportive of our relationship. "Noah," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Thank you for coming." "Catherine," I replied cautiously. "Your message was concerning." She glanced around before leaning forward. "I know about the arrangement between you and my sister. The fake relationship that somehow turned real, or at least, that's what you both seem to believe." My heart raced, but I kept my expression neutral. "I'm not sure what you're talking about." "Please," she said, impatience flashing across her face. "I've known Eliza her entire life. Do you really think I wouldn't notice when she suddenly produces a fiancé exactly when she needs one for grandmother's will?" She sighed. "I'm not here to expose you. I'm here to warn you." "Warn me about what?" "Marcus knows too. And unlike me, he's not keeping quiet about it." She pulled out her phone, showing me an email. "He's hired a private investigator who's been following you both. He has proof, dates, times, the original meeting, everything. He's planning to present it to grandmother the day before the wedding." I felt sick. "Why are you telling me this?" Catherine's expression softened. "Because despite what you might think of our family, I love my sister. And strangely enough, I think you might be good for her." She put her phone away. "Eliza has never stood up for herself, never fought for what she really wants, until that art center. And now, you." The cafe door opened, and Eliza walked in, spotting us immediately. As she approached, Catherine stood. "Think about what I've said," she told me quietly. "You have 3 weeks to figure out a solution." "Catherine," Eliza said, surprise and wariness in her voice as she reached our table. "What's going on?" Her sister kissed her cheek. "Just having a chat with my future brother-in-law. Call me later." With that, she walked out, leaving us alone. I quickly explained what Catherine had told me. Eliza's face paled as she listened. "If Marcus goes to grandmother with proof," she said, her voice shaking, "everything falls apart. The inheritance, the art center, all of it. There has to be a way to stop him," I insisted. "Could Catherine help?" Eliza shook her head. "Catherine has never had any influence over Marcus. And grandmother trusts him implicitly. He's the responsible grandchild who joined the family business straight out of college." We sat in silence for a moment, the gravity of the situation settling over us. "What if," I said slowly, "we beat him to it? What if we tell Eleanor the truth ourselves, but on our terms?" Eliza looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "That would be suicide." She'd cut me off completely. Maybe not, I countered. Think about it, what's more important to Eleanor, punishing you for deceiving her, or maintaining the Vandermeer family image? If Marcus exposes us publicly, it's a scandal. If we come to her privately, confess everything but explain that our feelings have become real, she saves face. And the Arts Center? We make that part of the negotiation. You get a smaller inheritance, perhaps, but enough to keep the center running. Eliza considered this, turning her coffee cup in her hands. It's risky. Extremely risky. So is waiting for Marcus to drop his bomb, I pointed out. At least this way, we control the narrative. She reached across the table for my hand. And us? What happens to us if we do this? It was the question that had been hovering between us for weeks. What was real, what was pretend, what could last beyond the circumstances that brought us together? That's up to us, I said, squeezing her fingers. Whatever happens with your family, with the inheritance. I want to see where this goes, Eliza. For real. No pretending. A smile slowly spread across her face, not the polished Vandermeer smile, but the genuine one I'd come to treasure. So do I. Telling Eleanor the truth was every bit as terrifying as we'd anticipated. We requested a private meeting at her home, arriving together on a snowy December evening. The housekeeper showed us into Eleanor's study, a wood-paneled room lined with books and family photographs, dominated by a massive desk where the Vandermeer matriarch sat reviewing documents. Eliza, Noah, she greeted us, setting aside her reading glasses. To what do I owe this unexpected visit? Eliza took a deep breath. Grandmother, we need to tell you something important. About how Noah and I met, and other things. Eleanor's expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted. I see. Please, sit down. For the next 20 minutes, we laid out the whole story, the initial arrangement, the developing feelings, everything except Catherine's warning about Marcus. Throughout, Eleanor listened without interruption, her face unreadable. When we finished, the silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, Eleanor spoke. Let me be sure I understand, she said, her voice dangerously calm. You orchestrated an elaborate deception to manipulate me and secure your inheritance. You lied to my face, repeatedly, and involved an outsider in family matters. Her gaze shifted to me. And you, Mr. Chen, agreed to this charade for financial compensation. Initially, yes, I admitted. But that changed. What I feel for Eliza now is real. How convenient, Eleanor said coldly. Eliza leaned forward. Grandmother, I know what we did was wrong. I'm not asking you to forgive the deception. But the Arts Center is doing real good in the community. Those children need. Do not speak to me about need, Eleanor cut her off. You have never known need a day in your life, Eliza. What you know is want. You want to play at being a benefactor instead of accepting your responsibilities to this family. It's not playing, Eliza said, her voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. The Arts Center is the most meaningful thing I've ever done. More meaningful than attending charity galas or sitting on boards or any of the other things that count as responsibility in this family. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. And this sudden backbone? Is that his influence? She nodded toward me. No, Eliza said firmly. It's always been there. I just never had something worth fighting for before. Something flickered across Eleanor's face, surprise, perhaps, or reluctant respect. She turned her attention to me. And you, Mr. Chen? What do you hope to gain from this confession? Surely you realize that the inheritance is now forfeit. I met her gaze steadily. I'm not here for money, Mrs. Vandermeer. I'm here because I care about Eliza, and because living with this lie isn't the foundation either of us wants for a relationship. A relationship, she repeated. So you still intend to pursue this connection? Yes, we said in unison. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment, studying us both. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. Well, she said, it seems Marcus was right after all. Eliza tensed beside me. Marcus? What does he have to do with this? My grandson came to me weeks ago with his suspicions about your arrangement. Eleanor's lips curved in a cold smile. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate? That I would simply accept this convenient relationship without question? My stomach dropped. You've known all along. Not all along, she corrected. But certainly by the gala. The kiss was convincing, I'll grant you that. For a moment, I almost believed it myself. Eliza's face had gone pale. The amended will. Moving up the wedding. That was all. A test, Eleanor confirmed. One you've now failed spectacularly. She stood, moving to the window to look out at the snow falling in the garden. The question is, what happens now? We exchanged glances, uncertain. This was not how we'd expected the conversation to go. I suppose, Eleanor continued, her back still to us, that depends on what you truly want, Eliza. Not just from your inheritance, but from your life. Eliza straightened in her chair. I want the Arts Center to continue. And I want. She glanced at me. I want the chance to build something real with Noah, without lies between us. Eleanor turned back to face us. And if I were to offer you a choice? The full inheritance as originally promised, with no marriage requirement, but you must end this relationship and take your place in the family business. Or a significantly reduced sum, enough only to keep your art center afloat, and freedom to pursue whatever future you choose with Mr. Chen. The offer hung in the air between us. I held my breath, not daring to look at Eliza. This was her decision, her future. I wouldn't influence her either way. That's not a real choice, Eliza said finally. You're still trying to control me. I'm offering you clarity, Eleanor countered. Something your deception has muddied considerably. Eliza stood, her posture mirroring her grandmother's. Then let me be clear. I choose the Art Center, and I choose Noah. Not because it's the only option you've given me, but because it's what I truly want. Pride swelled in my chest at her words, at the strength in her voice. Eleanor studied her granddaughter for a long moment. Then, remarkably, she smiled, a genuine smile that transformed her severe face. Well, she said softly. There she is at last. The real Eliza Vandermeer. Confusion crossed Eliza's face. I don't understand. For 30 years, Eleanor said, returning to her desk, I have watched you bend to this family's expectations. I've watched you bury your passions, hide your talents, diminish yourself to fit the mold we created. She shook her head. It has been disappointing. Disappointing? Eliza repeated, incredulous. You're the one who created those expectations. Yes, Eleanor acknowledged. Perhaps that was my mistake. I wanted you to be strong enough to break them. I looked between the two women, sensing a lifetime of miscommunication unraveling before me. The Art Center, Eleanor continued. That was the first sign of the woman you could become. And now this, standing before me, choosing your own path despite the consequences. She opened a drawer and removed a folder. That is the Vandermeer spirit I've been waiting to see. She slid the folder across the desk toward Eliza. The full inheritance, as originally promised in my will. No marriage requirement. No strings attached. Eliza stared at the folder, then at her grandmother. I don't understand. Why? Because you've finally proven yourself worthy of it, Eleanor said simply. Not by doing what was expected, but by finding the courage to do what you believe is right, even when it's difficult. Even when it means standing up to me. Tears filled Eliza's eyes. All this time. I have not always been wise in how I've tried to shape you, Eleanor admitted. But I have always wanted you to become your own woman, not a pale copy of what you think a Vandermeer should be. She turned to me, her gaze assessing but no longer cold. As for you, Mr. Chen. It seems my granddaughter has chosen you, deception and all. That says something about your character that perhaps outweighs your participation in this scheme. Thank you, I said, not quite sure what else to say. Don't thank me yet, she warned. The Vandermeer family is not an easy one to join, even peripherally. And I will be watching you very carefully. Grandmother, Eliza began, but Eleanor held up a hand. The wedding is, of course, cancelled. If and when you two decide to marry, it will be on your terms, not mine. She glanced at her watch. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have calls to make. Marcus will be disappointed to learn his investigative efforts were for naught. As we stood to leave, still stunned by the turn of events, Eleanor added, Eliza. Dinner on Sunday. Bring Noah if you wish. We have much to discuss about the future of your arts center. Outside in the snow, Eliza and I stood in silence for a moment, processing what had just happened. Did that really just? I began. I have no idea, Eliza said, laughing through tears. In 30 years, I've never understood that woman. I'm not about to start now. I pulled her close, snow falling around us like confetti. So what happens now? For us, I mean. She looked up at me, snowflakes catching in her eyelashes. Now we start over. No pretending, no arrangements. Just us, figuring out what's real. I'd like that, I said, brushing snow from her hair. Though I have to admit, our how we met story is going to be complicated. She laughed, the sound bright in the winter quiet. I was thinking about that. How about, she said, everyone is watching. Kiss me, or they'll see we're just pretending. And then? I asked, drawing her closer. And then, she whispered, her lips close to mine, we stopped pretending. As we kissed in the falling snow, I thought about the strange journey that had brought us here, a fake relationship that had somehow led to something more authentic than anything either of us had known before. Whatever came next, whatever challenges we faced, we would face them together, with no more pretending between us. Sometimes, it seems, the most unexpected beginnings lead to the truest endings. As the camera pulls back from the couple embracing in the snow, the narrator's voice returns. And there you have it, a story about finding truth in deception, courage in vulnerability, and love in the most unexpected places. Sometimes the masks we wear become so comfortable that we forget who we are beneath them. But with the right person, we find the strength to let those masks fall away. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content that explores the complicated, beautiful mess that is human connection. Until next time, remember that the most convincing performance might just be the one where you finally play yourself.